Hi, I'm Abigail Spencer. You're listening to KUOI 89.3 FM, and I'm here with...
Soule Exquisite.
Nice. Awesome. If you guys want to go around and introduce yourselves.
Hey, my name's Lily Tahar.
My name is Zora Sebelisa.
Hi, I'm Francesca Iluhu.
I'm Thomas Arndt.
I'm Josh Pearson.
Awesome. Thanks so much for coming, guys. Yeah. So, you guys had just released an EP back in January. Mm-hmm. What was the writing process for that?
Yeah, the writing process was awesome. It was kind of an accumulation of a lot of things we'd been working on. We got together in 2021 and we took our time to really get to know each other and then kind of jam and just build out from there. Zora and I wrote a lot of the lyrics for it, and it was just very fluid.
Awesome. When you were going into writing this album, I know you have previous songwriting experience, but what went into inspiration for it, thinking about what you wanted to say with the EP and talking about it?
I think it was pretty organic, honestly. I think we just came together as a group of musicians who didn't really have a ulterior motive or we want to make this kind of sound or this kind of record or this kind of genre of music. We just got together, and it's 6 people, really different backgrounds, and we just organically had to negotiate how those all intersect and how those fit together. And so, like Francesca alluded to earlier, it took a long time to write all these songs, and it was sort of this organic formation practice, and I think the record really encapsulates just that first stage of our band.
Sure.
Yeah.
One of the things I've seen a lot in kind of other press you guys have done is how much queerness goes into your songwriting and your musical experience. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of us are queer. And even when I set out to create the band, I knew I wanted to center that narrative of marginalized identities. So that's the on the posters that I put up, that's what I was looking for. But I really just felt like that story wasn't being highlighted enough in media, at least not from a first person experience.
For sure.
Yeah. So Do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I feel like it would be weirder if we didn't, right? It's such a big part of our experiences, and a part of our community, all of our community. We have such a wonderful group of queer, gender all good.
That's what
gender fluid
homies and queer homies, and it's our lives, right? It's everything. Yeah.
I think there's something about the album that we're both talking about the systems of oppression that affect us, but also we're talking a lot about strength and healing and actualization in the face of that.
Well, the common denominator with all that is just a radical love. So
For sure.
that's
Yeah.
how it all kind of unifies.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So also in the musicality of the EP, I had noticed, the one that everyone keeps pointing out is the Caribbean influences. But what do you think is maybe some tracks or some albums or some artists who really formed what you guys think of as cohesively your sound?
Yeah. I feel like there's so many artists that we bring to the table because we do have really different backgrounds.
Yusuf Days.
Yeah, Yusuf
Days.
Yeah. The London jazz scene, Sade, Stevie Wonder, the internet, Hiatus Coyote.
Yeah, I feel like Hiatus Coyote is a big one on there. Just the way they use rhythms and their songwriting and the sections of their music is so...
Building momentum.
Yeah, rhythmically diverse, rhythmically complex.
Yeah.
I feel like every time we're at a show together seeing music, it can be a punk show, a hip hop show, jazz show. We're just nudging each other and being oh, they're doing this cool thing.
We're gonna steal that.
For sure. Then we have metal backgrounds, punk backgrounds, classical, jazz, Caribbean, just all over the place, and it's not a copy paste of oh, we're gonna put some jazz here next to some metal. It's this confluence of what happens when we mix ourselves and our sounds together.
Yeah, we're always challenging ourselves to innovate and do something new, and experiment. And I think the influences that we admire do exactly that. They allow themselves to evolve.
I feel like it's. Oh, sorry.
No, go for it.
Oh, I think it's a consequence of that organic process that we have, right? Is that so much of our writing process is like we're improvising, and then even after we finish a song, we're always improvising pieces of it. It's like we're really like always reaching into like the subconscious, and we're just like, myself at least, I'm always just like pulling out like maybe the first or second thing that is on that shelf, and so it's like, what was the thing I listened to before practice today, and then I'm trying to play that somehow.
Yeah, I like that. It really does, like, it's short-term memory and chance too.
Yeah.
Right.
Speaking of like mixing and improvisation, because you guys are a newer band, you've kind of recently started this idea of like recording and producing all of your music, and has that kind of affected how you think of your music as like a finished work versus like that constantly improvising, constantly changing piece of work?
Yeah, I think for me, it's really definitely influenced how just like approaching. I mean, like, it's 6 people, so it's a lot of parts, right? And like the recording process kind of allows you to like really transparently see how these parts are fitting together and like what they're doing and what I guess the role you have in the whole sonic tapestry is. And I think that like recording music has gotten all of us to be more like critical and like maybe more clearly seeing like how to play our instruments. Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm grasping at a thread here. Maybe some.
No, it's like I mean, you have someone, right, to compare yourself to, and that person is generally yourself, which is kind of crazy, but like so you're always like, you're able to really reflect on the music. And then for me at least, like, I'm always kind of, sometimes I'll be looking back at what I recorded and I'm like, how did I do that? And then the process of like reaching for that, I'll like maybe miss the mark and end up somewhere else. I'm like, oh, that was kind of cool.
Yeah,
you know?
for sure.
Yeah, definitely sharpened our chops. I think in recording, we kind of shocked ourselves. We were like, oh, wow, that was awesome. That's always nice.
I think it's really cool that we record all rehearsals, and that's a big part of our writing process. Nice. And so there's this balance, and Lily was describing this kind of process of like hyper analysis, but then there's this balance with some of the raw, in the moment creation that happens, and it's like, that has to be maintained, whatever we do in the final recordings. Like, we have to capture whatever, gentleness and like a lack of that critical ear just in creating whatever happened. It's an interesting balance. We're always having conversations together about that. So recording is super helpful, and then also can be really anxiety inducing sometimes, and so just balancing that has been great.
For sure. Awesome. I have to like cue the next question.
For sure. Loading.
Cut that back.
So you guys speak a lot I read an interview with you guys for The Stranger, where you guys speak a lot about Caribbean influence and Brazilian influence in your music. Where does that kind of come in? Because like, I've listened to a lot of your stuff. You guys also pull in a lot of like techno and stuff like that. That's really interesting.
Interesting.
That's cool, yeah. Well, my family's from the French Caribbean.
For sure.
I'm half French, half Congolese, so I guess I've always been drawn to that type of sound, and that my uncle is a musician in the Caribbean, so I kind of grew up hearing those like syncopated rhythms, and it felt more natural to me, so I just leaned that way naturally. And then I kind of bonded with Thomas over Brazilian music, because Thomas lived in Brazil for a little while. Do you want to speak to that?
I spent half a year living in Rio, playing with a bunch of carnival drum groups, and so really learned a lot of Brazilian rhythms through that. And then when I was invited to join this band as a percussionist, I had never done hand percussion or auxiliary percussion in a band before. I was like, okay, let me find all the instruments I have and see what I can make happen. And so that's been a fun role to kind of like play with Josh on the drums, and to add different Brazilian and Latin and anything else that I feel on top of and within the the rhythm is going on.
Sure. So you guys have two percussionists.
Mhm.
You do more like hand percussion, and then you're on a traditional drum set.
Usually, yeah.
How do you two work together on finding that really cohesive rhythm for a song and for a piece?
Tons of listening.
Yeah.
A lot of playing too. But yeah, you said it right. You know, listening for those spaces that aren't being occupied, that might be meaningful if they were occupied. And I want to shout Lily out too. Lily's a really, really talented percussionist, and so we all have these conversations together about what's possible, what's happening, you know. But as far as our relationship goes, especially at live shows, it's a lot of improv, like Zora said too, where we're just hearing little spaces we may not have picked on before, or we're overlapping in cool ways, or overlapping in ways that, you know, maybe the next bar will change it up and see what happens next. You know, it's exciting for me because I used to play in ensembles with other percussionists, but this is the first time I've been in a band where I'm contributing to like a lot of writing in that context too. So it's got to be kind of it's a thoughtful process.
I think we free each other up a lot too, because it's like, oh, you're doing that on the hi-hat, you're holding down that, so I can add something totally different. Or I'm doing, you know, a hi-hat pattern, and you get to work your way around the kit in a different way.
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, it was lovely sitting down and chatting with y'all. Do you guys have anything else you want to plug?
One thing we're really feels really important to us while we're here in Treefort, there was a call from local activists and community members to be in support of calling for a ceasefire in Palestine. There's over a dozen bands that have been signing on to that, and so we're going to play tonight at Basque Center at 5:50, and we'll be making a statement on stage as in solidarity with that.
Awesome.
Yeah. Free Palestine.
Awesome.
Free
Thank you so
Palestine, ceasefire now.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.